Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Believe me, the ending of our first story will not leave anyone indifferent. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Weirdo steals boat motor and acts as his own attorney during the criminal trial. Cast: me, overworked prosecutor, ED, entitled dad. There have been cases in this forum that resulted in the EP being arrested, and I thought there may be some interest as to what happens after the arrest. This happened many years ago when I was deputy prosecutor handling misdemeanor cases. In this particular case, there was a street on a private beach with a series of houses in a remote area. There were other places that had public beach access, and this particular place was off the main road and not easily accessible. There was no reason to be there unless you were a resident of one of the houses or were visiting someone there. The ED drove into the neighborhood and stole a boat motor from one of the properties. A neighbor watched him put the motor into his truck, got the license plate number, and called the police. A deputy responded and pulled him over a short time later. The deputy found the boat motor in the back of the truck, and ED admitted he took it. ED was cited for misdemeanor theft. He wasn't taken into custody, but was given a notice to appear in court. This was typical for a non-violent property offense. I then got the case. So I was minding my own business, working in my office, when ED called and demanded to speak with me. He then demanded that I dismiss the charge against him. He didn't really have a coherent reason as to why, since he pretty much had been caught red-handed. He mainly yelled and was obnoxious. Legal tip number 1. Yelling at the prosecutor will not result in criminal charges going away, but it will result in having to deal with a cranky prosecutor. When he couldn't bully me into dismissing the charge, he then demanded that another prosecutor be assigned to his case. This did not happen. Legal tip number 2. People charged with crimes don't get to choose the prosecutors on their cases. The case is set for trial, he pleads not guilty, and elects to represent himself. At trial, I call as witnesses the neighbor, the boat motor owner, and the arresting deputy. ED presents a beachcombing defense that if he's able to keep a pretty shell he finds at the beach, he ought to be able to keep a boat motor. It didn't make a lot of sense. It really got interesting when he called himself as his own witness. He questioned himself by having a conversation with himself. Here's an example of how some of that actual testimony went. ED shifts to the left side of the witness chair. Mr. ED's last name, do you have a motive to steal a boat? ED then shifts to the right side of the witness chair and looks at the empty space that he just occupied. No, I don't have a motive to steal a boat. ED slides to the left. Mr. ED's last name, do you like seafood? ED slides right. No, I do not like seafood. My kids do not like seafood. My wife likes seafood, but that's not a motive to steal a boat. I looked over at the arresting deputy who was sitting next to me as my designated law enforcement representative. He was watching with a horrified expression, and I saw his lips silently form the words, "What the F?" Later, we were outside. The deputy told me how freaky he thought it was. It took the jury 15 minutes to find him guilty. I don't remember specifically what he got as a sentence, but it was likely only fines and community service since that was typical for that kind of offense. Great story. You have to love crazy people who think themselves geniuses. And our second story. You're not the engineer. So this story comes from my time working as a deckhand on a commuter ferry in New York City. Scheduled maintenance was almost non-existent once in 2 years working there, meaning regular upkeep fell to the crew engineers. The engineer for my shift was wildly incompetent, but somehow still got the job. It was a running joke that our boat had 2 crews but only 1 engineer because the morning guy actually knew his crap. This meant that the morning engineer had to do his job, the evening guy's job, and the work that should have been done by scheduled maintenance. Well, the result is the engines ran, but non-critical aspects of the boat were neglected and would often break down. As a techie and halfway competent handyman, I took to figuring out and fixing these odds and ends in my downtime between runs. My normal shift captain and crew were all appreciative of it and came to rely on asking me instead of our engineer when minor things broke. Well, this was all fine and dandy until one day when my normal captain was sick. We got a substitute captain from another shift who was a jerk to about anybody except the head captain and his own crew. Partway through our shift, the coffee maker broke down, meaning grumpy commuters and no tips for the crew. I, of course, set right to taking the thing apart, figuring we had nothing to lose. The captain catches on to the situation, because sailors gossip, and calls me to the bridge. He proceeds to chew me out over how I'm not authorized to maintain equipment and should get back to cleaning, his favorite menial task to punish people with, or get off his boat. It had been a long day already, 8-ish hours into a 12-hour shift, and I wasn't in the mood for his crap or cleaning, so I just said, okay, walked out. When we arrived at our next stop, I grabbed my stuff and got off with the passengers, happy for an early day. The idiot apparently didn't even notice I was gone for almost an hour, according to my coworkers. The next day, I went to start my shift and found the head captain standing on the dock talking to my normal captain. He informed me that the substitute captain reported firing me for insubordination, and he was trying to arrange for a morning guy to stay on for a double shift. I explained the situation, and both the head captain and my captain broke out laughing. Head captain asked if I'd like my job back, even offered to authorize me to repair minor equipment that's not part of the operational systems of the boat. I did end up moving on a few months later, and it's been almost 13 years now since this incident. I keep in touch with some of my old crew. Apparently, the substitute captain is still salty about me not getting fired on his say-so. I get the why only mechanics are allowed to fix things. Then again, it's a GD coffee machine. The worst you can do is short out a fuse by crossing some wires. And for anything built after the 80s, there's probably automatic fuses, so unplugging and restarting will reset the damage to everything else. And our last story. The financial damage may have been small, but not the damage to his ego. A bit of background. As a male in my country, Austria, when you finish your compulsory education, you have to either join the army for 6 months or do compulsory social service. This is the best translation I can come up with. The social service might include working for the Red Cross, caring for the elderly or mentally disabled people, basically doing something that benefits society. Having met some people who work in the army, I bravely decided to do the social service and was allocated to a hostel for foreign students. It's important to note that Zivis, as people in these roles are called, don't make a lot of money. Some of my friends earn about 330 euros a month. I was relatively lucky, making about 600 euros per month, which in a country with such a high cost of living is laughable. As a result, I wasn't exactly motivated to go above and beyond the call of duty and was pretty miserable, working my butt off for 10 to 12 hours a day. The hostel was located next to a school that held a big event every year where they showed potential new students the grounds, gave them a bit of a taste of life in their hostels. This, of course, always attracted a lot of people with a lot of cars in a town that's not exactly overflowing with parking spaces. The hostel had its own parking spaces, one for each room, with signs stating that the lot was private property and illegally parked cars would be towed without warning. On the day of the event, they even put up an extra-large sign stating the same thing. So we did everything we could to stop people from making mistakes. The day the event rolls around, I was told to make sure that no non-residents parked in our lot. I was a bit annoyed by this, as it meant leaving the heated building to tell already irritated and, more often than not, entitled parents to learn how to read signs and please move their cars off our lot. To make sure they do, I was legally allowed to clamp any illegally parked car and have it towed. Most people cleared off and were apologetic. Others tried to argue with my already PO'd self until I threatened them with the clamp. Everything was going okay until a black S-Class Mercedes with plates from a town more than 500 kilometers away made its way onto our lot and parked right in front of my office window. Out got Mr. M, Mercedes, as well as his trophy wife, and their 2 seriously obese sons. I thought to myself, oh boy, this is going to be fun, and went outside to catch them before they left the property. The conversation went a little something like this. Me: excuse me, you can't park here. This is a private parking lot, and I'm going to have to ask you to park elsewhere. Mr. M: what? Who the F are you to tell me what to do? I'm just a zivvy, and I'm not telling you what to do. I'm asking you to obey the law. Haha, a zivvy. What the F are you gonna do? Run to someone who actually matters to see what he does? Get lost, loser. His boys and his wife started laughing at this point. If you don't move the car, Shut the F up. Nobody cares what you have to say. Do whatever you want, you useless waste of money. Okay, tough guy, have it your way. They went off toward the school. I went inside and got the clamped his wheel, and had him towed. It's important to note that we were partners with the towing service that had their headquarters about 100 kilometers away. They came back about 2 hours later, just as I had handed over the keys to my colleague. I walked out to my own car, and from a distance could see Mr. M's eyes go wide and his head turning red. He immediately ran up to me and started screaming at me about where his car had gone. "Where the F is my car, you a-hole? I had parked it right here, and now it's gone. Tell me what you've done with it, you little crap." "Nice to see you again, too. I had it towed, which I would have warned you about had you not been such an a-hole." "What? How dare you? You can't just tow people's cars like this. I'll sue the ever-loving crap out of you." "You're right, I can't just have people's cars towed. But I had asked you to leave politely, and there are signs at every entrance telling you what'll happen if you park here as a non-resident. What I did was perfectly within the law. Also, weren't you the one that told me to do what I wanted?" "That doesn't matter. Where the hell were we supposed to park? How the hell are we supposed to get home to town XYZ?" "Don't know, don't care. You can call our towing partners. Their number's on the no parking signs. If that doesn't satisfy you, you're going to have to find someone that actually matters." I then went home after asking him repeatedly to step away from me, having to threaten him with calling the police. The next day, our towing partner called me to tell about this absolute a-hole with the Mercedes they had towed the day before. He had to pay about 300 euros in towing fees, 600 euro fine for trespassing onto our property, as well as a 300 euro taxi fare. I know this won't hurt him financially, but it was satisfying nonetheless. You cost him time, which is much more valuable than money to him. Well done. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.